Kendrick made history, but this red, white, and blue jacket is also catching the light, commanding attention from 100 million viewers worldwide. Yeah, most people were focused on the music, the performance, and the spectacle, but there was another story unfolding right before our eyes, one written in fabric and stitched with cultural influence. That jacket, it wasn't created by some massive fashion house with unlimited resources. It wasn't designed by a celebrity's label. It came from a designer, once operated out of London bars and clubs to make ends meet while building her brand. A designer who started with just 1,500 euros, about the cost of a single front row Super Bowl ticket. How did someone go from a tiny loan to dressing one of music's biggest icons on its biggest stage? Before the big name collabs and industry praise, Martine Rose was just a young designer with a vision shaped by her upbringing and surroundings. Born in 1980 in South London, she grew up in a British Jamaican household where style was everything. Spending much of her childhood with her grandmother and cousins, she soaked up the energy of her environment. Fashion for Rose wasn't about magazines or runaway trends. It was about real life. She watched her older cousins, each part of different scenes from rave to reggae, punk to lovers rock, and saw how clothes became a form of self-expression. At home, style mattered more than fashion. It was all about how you put things together. Her sister was always pushing boundaries, and she wore designers like Pam Hogg and was a huge inspo. Another key influence was Felice, a local dressmaker in Wimbledon who worked magic with fabric in her tiny flat, cutting patterns freehand and proving that great design didn't have to come from a fancy studio. As Rose got older, London's nightlife shaped her even more. She got her first glimpse of its wild energy at the age of 9. By 14, she was celebrating her birthday at Strawberry Sundays in Vauxhall, surrounded by an electric mix of people and styles. That love for subcultures, diversity, and unexpected clashes of influence would become her foundation of her work. She started her fashion journey at Camberwell College of Arts before heading to Middlesex University, where she graduated in 2002. While she picked up the creative skills, business training was lacking, something she'd feel later in her career. But for Rose, fashion wasn't about the industry itself. It was a way to tell stories. After graduation, she found herself in a world full of eccentric, creative characters, a scene that felt just right for her. Martine Rose didn't follow a straight path into fashion entrepreneurship, and this is why I actually went through her background. Some of you that's into fashion or even any type of business, just know we all come from different walks of lives, and we all have different type of experiences in education, but we all can get into the business differently, with different strategies, different ways, and even different times. And for Martine, she landed an internship at Arena magazine, but it didn't quite scratch her creative itch. So in 2003, she and her friend, who's now her stylist, launched LMNOP, a playful t-shirt brand that started as a side project. They weren't expecting much, but when they started getting their clothes into some retailers, things got real fast. And the problem was they had zero business experience. Rose's time at Middlesex had fueled her creativity, but didn't teach her the strategies for running a brand. They didn't understand production or the basics of business. And after about 2 years, LMNOP folded. Still, the experience taught Rose an important lesson, which was to start small and focus on one thing and perfect that one thing before expanding. In 2007, she launched her own label in London. Back then, menswear wasn't the thriving scene it is today. London's collections, Men, now London Fashion Week's Men, didn't even exist yet. When she announced she was focusing on menswear, people doubted her choice, but going against the grain would soon become her signature move. Her entire brand was started with just a 1,500 euro loan from the Prince's Trust. This is a British charity that offers financial support and mentoring to young business owners. But in dollars, it was about $2,300 at the time, a really tiny budget for launching a fashion label, to be honest with you, especially back then when the digital landscape wasn't as diverse as it is today. That meant being strategic instead of trying to do everything at once. She started with a tightly curated shirting collection, laying the groundwork for what would become an influential global brand. But back then, those early days were tough. Constant financial uncertainty, moments of doubt, and just barely making enough to keep going. Rose has said she was always selling just enough to not completely throw in the towel. The brand slowly built a small but loyal following, landing in about 10 stores, including Great in Tokyo, Japan, and Browns in London. But real commercial success still felt out of reach for her. When you have no money, you only have one option if you really want to make it, and that's getting creative. If you're planning your next drop and you're not 100% sure it's ready to sell out, I got something for you. I put together a free online assessment to help streetwear brands like yours figure out if you're really set to make your next release a success. This isn't just some generic checklist either. It's built to help you understand whether your hype is real and strong enough to drive demand, how to keep your brand exclusive while building recognition, and if your plan is tight enough to actually sell out. If you're serious about making moves, hit the link in the description, take the assessment, and find out if your brand is really ready for that release. Don't wait until it's too late. For her spring-summer 2015 collection, she didn't have the budget for a full presentation, so she just made one look. Instead of seeing it as a setback, she treated it as a challenge. How do you tell a story with the bare minimum? This mindset, turning limitations into creative opportunities, became a defining part of her approach. For years, what I want you guys to understand is, fashion wasn't even her full-time gig. She worked in bars, clubs to pay the bills, keeping one foot in and one foot out of the industry until she was 34 years old. It wasn't ideal for business growth, but it gave her the freedom to experiment, to make mistakes, and develop her style without the pressure of immediate success. And you may wonder what kept her going. Small but meaningful moments of validation. Kim Jones and PR powerhouse Mandy Leonard were her early supporters, with Mandy once reassuring her during a low point, "Don't worry, the right people are watching." And through it all, her parents never missed a show, giving her the kind of support that mattered the most. From the start, Martine Rose's designs stood out, not just for their style, but for their attitude. Instead of looking to high fashion for inspiration, she pulled from the world around her. London's rave, reggae music, and like what I said earlier, which was the punk scenes, and all of these three components she grew up with. She was fascinated by how regular people dress, whether for a night out or just their daily lives. Her early collections had a deliberately off-quality, oversized fits, unexpected fabric combos, and proportions that felt awkward in a way that made you stop and look. Think short torsos, flared trousers, slouchy bomber jackets, and sportswear mixed with classic tailoring. Today this might seem familiar, but when she first introduced all these ideals, they were a bold departure from mainstream menswear. A big part of Rose's vision came from the mix of different communities and the way styles clashed and evolved when cultures collided. She follows a feeling, capturing the energy of an experience rather than copying an aesthetic. She focuses on real people, not fashion fantasies. While many designers built aspirational worlds, Rose found beauty in everyday life. That guy you see on the bus, or maybe the train, or the regulars at the local bar, that's who she did it for. She once described her approach as looking at the world through a funhouse mirror, familiar but warped just enough to make you see it differently. This love for reality extended her fashion shows. Instead of using traditional runaways, she staged them in places that mattered to her. Her daughter's primary school, a street market where she grabbed lunch, even under the arches in Vauxhall. These reinforced her belief that fashion should exist within real life, not apart from it. And why I'm telling you guys this is because some of you may have an inconsistent brand voice. Some of you may be struggling to maintain a consistent tone and style, which can confuse the audience, or even worse, some of you may even be targeting the wrong audience, which leads to misidentifying your market or having campaigns that don't resonate with your potential customers. So if you have problems like this, I suggest you to really take inspiration from your own experiences. Rose also had a way of twisting the rigid rules of menswear. In fact, she was drawn to menswear because of those strict conventions. It gave her something to push against. Her work always carried a sense of inspiration, challenging ideals of good taste and what men were supposed to wear. In a way, she had that same magic as Prada, taking things that might seem tacky or uncool and making them desirable. Over time, the industry started to take notice. Fashion East, the incubator that helps emerging designers, backed her for 3 seasons, from spring-summer 2011 to the summer of 2012. Lulu Kennedy, the program's founder, saw something special in Rose's work, something real. She described it as a sense of recognition, a feeling that Rose wasn't just referencing subcultures but truly understood them. At first, her design spoke mainly to early adopters, people who appreciated fashion that pushed boundaries, but as time passed, it became clear. Martine Rose Rose wasn't just ahead of her time, she was actually changing the game. Martine Rose didn't become a widely recognized name overnight, though it was a slow climb, like what I said, from underground favorite to industry heavyweight. Her first big break came in 2014, which was 7 years from when she initially started, and she won the New Gen Men Award from the British Fashion Council. It was a prestigious nod that gave her both financial support and mentorship, helping to keep her independent label afloat. But that real game changer came in 2015 when the newly appointed Balenciaga's creative director tapped her as a consultant for the brand's menswear line. At the time, Rose was still operating on a shoestring budget, so this wasn't just a big career moment, it was financial stability. More than that though, it was a proof that her unique vision was being recognized at the highest level of fashion. Her work with Balenciaga from 2015 to 2018 gave her the means to reinvest in her own label, scaling up in a way that previously seemed out of reach. The impact was immediate. Her stocks in stores jumped from around 10 to an impressive 140 retailers worldwide. At that same time, her designs were getting prime placement in top fashion publications, meaning Vogue, Days, WO32C, Arena Home, Plus, and much more. She was no longer just a designer that insiders admired. Her influence was reaching a much wider audience. Her cultural impact was cemented in 2019 when she was featured in Get Up, Stand Up Now at Somerset House, an exhibition celebrating 50 years of Black British creativity. It was a moment that recognized her not just as a designer, but as someone shaping conversations around identity and representation in fashion. As her reputation grew, so did opportunities for collabs. Rose worked with Nike, Timberland, and Ben Trill, always making sure these partnerships align with her vision. The Nike collab though in 2018 was particularly bold. She put her own spin on the brand's tracksuit and Monarch sneaker, first selling them on Craigslist before they hit mainstream retailers. I mean, how dope is that marketing plot, by the way? In 2023, she pushed boundaries again with a heeled version of the Nike Shox, one of the year's most hyped sneaker releases. Through all this though, Rose never lost what made her stand out in the first place. Even as she moved from underground cult favorite to globally recognized force, she stayed true to her core values, always pushing boundaries and always keeping things real. As Martine Rose's brand grew, so did her approach to business, which started as a pure creative experimentation, gradually became a more strategic operation, balancing artistry with the realities of production and logistics. Early on, about 30 to 40% of her collections were manufactured in the UK, but political shifts like Brexit forced her to rethink that structure. Moving some production to Italy and warehousing to Central Europe wasn't an easy decision. It meant parting ways with long-standing UK partners, but it was a necessary step to keep the business running smoothly. Her customer base also took an unexpected turn. Although she had always positioned her brand as menswear, a significant portion of her buyers were women. Instead of rebranding as gender neutral, she stuck to the original menswear roots while embracing the organic diversity of her audience. Her timing couldn't have been better. Fashion was shifting, and her designs fit perfectly into the evolving conversation around gender and style. Despite her growing influence though, Rose never seemed preoccupied with chasing trophies. She was used to being the underdog, and in many ways, she preferred it. Even after winning the GQ Germany Designer of the Year award in 2022, she admitted she was delighted to win, but on the whole, she didn't really need to. That philosophy extends to how she views success in general. While many designers thrive on seeing their clothes worn by celebrities, Rose finds equal, if not greater, joy in spotting everyday people in her designs. Seeing people bring life to stuff, really wearing it out, that's also a massive boost, she said. That's way more important than any famous person. But let's be honest, collabs with big artists are just as exciting. Drake modeled for one of her collections during the pandemic. His number one hater, K-Dot, who once called her out in his lyrics, rhyming her name with sardine, wore her designs on tour, and Rihanna have all been spotted inside her clothes as well. In fact, her connection with K-Dot grew in 2023 when she designed merch for his Camp Flog festival set, even playing with that sardine lyric. Then in 2025, she created the custom Gloria jacket for a Super Bowl halftime show, which was a massive moment that put her work in front of millions. It was a cultural shift. Kendrick made history while wearing that jacket and flared jeans. And you didn't even realize Martine Rose was behind it all. What makes a celebrity cosign special is that they happen naturally, not as part of some big marketing strategy. Rose says her connection with Kendrick feels real, like they understand each other on a creative level. They both pull from everyday life, creating work that feels grounded and authentic. But if one thing is completely true, it is that Martine Rose's influence goes way beyond celebrities wearing her clothes. The oversized fits, the unexpected combos, the mix of workwear and sportswear. She was all doing this years ago, and is now everywhere, from high fashion runways to everyday streetwear. Her wonky proportions and unconventional styling were just a trend that helped shape the way menswear look today. But what really sets her apart is how she represents people and communities that fashion usually ignores. She doesn't just borrow from subcultures for aesthetics. Her connections feel real because it is real. She always casts non-traditional models, and she always chooses everyday locations for her shows, making sure her work stays connected to real life, not just glossy fashion fantasies. That sense of community even shows up in how she runs her brand. For her Spring/Summer's 2024 show at St. Joseph Parish Centre in North London, she put together a collection with corsets, boxer shorts, and fluffy mini dresses, all worn by street cast models. Months later, her team ran into some of them and heard how the experience changed them. One used a modeling fee just to buy a camera, and others said they felt seen for the first time. For Martine, those moments matter just as much as putting out a great collection. As of 2025, her brand is still growing and making waves with some strategic collaborations. In 2023, she took on the role of guest creative director for Clarks, designing a collection that included hiking sandals, derbies, desert boots, and even high-heel loafers, all with her signature esoteric twist. And while with Clarks actually be a good collaboration, it's because of her Jamaican roots. Some of her creations included derbies with seams across the toes. Despite all this success though, Rose stays humble about her achievements and the fashion industry in general. She's concerned about the increasing trend of celebrities becoming creative directors for big brands and what that could mean for the future of fashion designs as a profession. She also has been outspoken about how the UK doesn't provide the same support for fashion designers as a country like France, where fashion is highly protected, government funded, and seen as a major economic driver. She's worried about the financial struggles that current fashion students face and how it's limiting access to education for future talent. She said it's a massive loss to the arts and how many people there are who would be the geniuses of tomorrow, who can't even afford to get access to that education. But she's still hopeful that new designers will find alternative ways forward, pointing to initiatives like Fantastic Toilies, a pop-up shop set up by her friend Nasir, as examples of creative solutions. If we look back at her journey, from getting that €1,500 loan from the Princess Trust to dressing some of the biggest stars, it really shows how sticking to your own vision can pay off. I'm not saying it's gonna be a quick thing, but persistence and time, you definitely will get there, and it'll definitely be longevity. One thing that stands out though is how Rose never tried to create what she thought people would buy. Instead, she made designs that were true to her personal experiences, and that authenticity really connected with people, even when her brand wasn't exactly making big waves commercially. Another big takeaway is how being persistent paid off. She spent years just selling enough, like what I said, not to throw in the towel. She worked regular jobs until she was the age of 34, all while building her brand up. That hustle gave her the chance to figure things out. It also gave her the chance to make mistakes, to shape her style, without all the pressure to make money right away. And when she finally did it, she hit it big. She had a solid foundation for growth. She also really knew how to turn limitations into opportunities. When money was tight and she couldn't do traditional runaway shows, like what I said, she got creative with how she presented her collections. She took her shows to places that were personal to her, community spaces, local spots, making that limitation a big part of her brand's identity. And when she finally made it, she evolved her business without losing sight of her brand values. As her brand grew, Rose added more commercial pieces like t-shirts and hoodies, but she never lost the creative edge that made her stand out. And she was pretty selective with the collabs, working with bigger brands only when they really align with her vision. Again, this is not really a trendy thing. I know people think streetwear is a trend, but it's really a foundation. It's built on real connections, meaning you have to create a real, genuine community. Martine Rose's story shows that having a unique vision, sticking with it, and being flexible in your approach can turn even the smallest start into something huge. Her journey proves that independent designers can shake things up and make an impact on fashion in their own way. So yes, staying authentic and putting in the hard work can sometimes be more important than a big financial backing or instant commercial success. If we was to sum all of this success up in one word, I think we can say that word is consistency. You could do it, but the key is to not give up. And hey, if you like that video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and let me know if you have any other designers that you would like me to talk about next. Alright y'all, this is Lee from Norff Studios. Till next time, I'm out of here.